the technology, we both have technology that uses, we both experience technology that uses holograms and interacts with our minds. Find that very fascinating. Mine in my fifth contact event, and then Suzy as a child. Oh, this was the element I wanted to talk about. So, right. So this is a very fascinating piece. It's another dimensional aspect that we might not have expected from the aliens, that their tech is multi-dimensional. And what that might mean is that so we are so used to the human brain looks at words on a book or looks at a TV, and it's one dimensional. Well, technically it's probably two dimensions. So we're looking at just a flat piece of information, and then the brain is the thing that has to absorb that information. Well, this here is Rudy Schultz describing something that kind of all of a sudden made sense to me about my entire experience with the Grace technology. And I'll read this quote here from page 111 of the Dual Soul Connection. The child Suzy described rotating in three-dimensional patterns. Oh, by the way, he is referring to Suzy's experience of her being on the similar chair that I experienced, which was this kind of gray alien entertainment chair, which had three-dimensional images that come out, and then they interact with the eyes of the alien. Or it looks like they interact with the eyes, but they might be interacting with something deeper in the brain. And so Rudy says, which suggests that they are designed to create effects in consciousness. So an MRI brain scan would probably show that the two opposite brain lobes would have registered them in the characteristic consciousness state mirror symmetrical brain patterns. And Suzy mentioned that they were visually three-dimensional, which implies that they were registered as visual information in the two brain lobes, where the brain patterns could be compared in the two brain lobes and registered as three-dimensional. Thus, the same brain mirror neuron networks would have been registering image data and emotional consciousness reaction, making this for the aliens an animated, pleasing experience. So, understanding that the script is packed with information, and you can go into the information. I ended up learning it was Jim Sparks who experienced Gray Alien script that you can go into. I experienced it in my 25th contact event. Well, that's an extra dimension added on to the tech. That's an extra dimension added on to the script. It's another extra dimensional layer of the information. It's a 3D hologram, but you don't experience a hologram. You can experience the another layer of it. So I call them consciousness holograms on my book. And both me and Suzy have those type of experiences where this information is an extra dimensional layer of information provided. And I never quite thought of it that way. I never put the books together, the script combined with the holograms. And then, Rudy kind of made this grand picture that this is all an extra dimension added on to just this, what humans are only used to as two dimensions. Very, very fascinating. And the point I kind of want to add to this is from telepathy with the elder, I'm very aware she has telescopic vision. So she can zero in like with binoculars, like a bird could, and which I know is their fascination with owls. Right? We have a lot of screen memories that are owls. My screen memory that broke this all open was an owl, and she kind of go depth into an object. Well, you can kind of see something going on here where they have this kind of ability to use a multiple depth to their eyes. Then they have a consciousness script or a hologram, or in this case a chair that provides entertainment. And so you can see now that they're actually they're taking in multiple dimensions of information, and it's communicating to their brains in a very different way than humans. But what's interesting is that the stuff that I experience is obviously meant to experience, so then they're adjusting it for humans. And I find that all very fascinating too, that they're making we can't, both me and Suzy couldn't really experience their consciousness chair, their entertainment chair. We both have that experience where we struggle with trying to experience experience this information coming off the chair. But what that says is that then when we are experiencing things off their consciousness holograms, it might be adapted to the human, still as a three-dimensional object for us, though. And so we register the consciousness information, we register a greater depth within the tech. And that's just another dimensional layer. When we say dimensions to the aliens, this is just another example of it, where it's just far-reaching some of this information that we didn't even conceive was going on when it came to, the aliens and their world. So that I just found that whole part fascinating. Another interesting twist to Suzy's story is Rudy mentions this and kind of goes into some detail about it, that not all the crafts have transport beams. So you don't, you have to land the craft and the human has to walk in on it. And I'm literally saying in the book, my new edition, and I'm certain in the old edition, the 11th contact event where I'm in the water and I become the me that knows them, and I jump out into the water and I swim, get on shore, dry off, put clothes on, walk past my tent, walk into the forest, and finally get to the craft. And I'm asking myself years later, why did that happen? And I assume there's this kind of bigger meaning to it. And then here's this kind of experience that Rudy is talking about and Suzy's describing, that not all crafts have transport beams. And I just found that really interesting kind of limitation that I don't just, yeah, something that creates questions, really. But it just a really interesting connecting piece, again, between me and Suzy's contact events. Controlling light. I have distinct scenarios where I'm in the craft, and I was in the craft at one point, and I could see all the space. I go back into the same craft, and then the spaces are blacked out, and they don't want me to see what's behind that blacked out space. And what they're doing is it's like an erected black light, like they removed the light from this space. So it's this kind of feeling. It's a weird feeling of controlled light. And Suzy, you can describe that you have some of the similar experience where they controlled light on craft.
Yes, going down a corridor, and it's as if you're in your own little bubble because there's light appears around you as you progress. If you look behind you, the corridor is dark. You look ahead, the corridor is dark. So a lot of things that they can do with light, including the light elevator, which transports you in light. So I think that science is starting to catch up. They are now producing what they call liquid light, which is what I described in the elevator. So a lot of forms of manipulation and controlling light, particularly with some of the beams that come down from a craft that have a bottom on them, like they have an end point. They don't dissipate and disappear into the distance like our lights do. They actually have an end point. And often if you're standing on that end point as the beam is retracted into the craft, you have like a sensation of jumping. So yes, there's a great deal that they do with light that could be very beneficial to our society.
Yeah, and I really love Rudy Schilt's description here, that he's kind of saying, however, at present, no quantum field theory of gravity, including a theoretical framework for light emission, is presently available. So he's questioning, how is this even possible? We have no science that could explain a controlling of light, and less because consciousness as a spiraling quantum waves are involved in the operation of the spacecraft. The associated light may only occur when consciousness is being amplified, just as ordinary light is always created in the presence of electrical currents. Very fascinating connection. So he's relegating, the classic theory of light and saying, well, maybe this has something to do with consciousness instead. Because how are you able to control light in such a controlled way? And it doesn't make any sense in the science or the physics that we have. So yeah, just a very fascinating piece of the story that we don't have the full answers to. Both me and Suzy also have experiences of driving the craft in two separate modes. Suzy has that in the contact event with which she's taught how to drive the craft. She learns she learns about the two modes of the craft. I have two separate contact events where I drive the craft, one in thought control form and the other as a joystick.